Welcome back, everyone, to the Go 247 podcast. I'm Glen West, the senior writer with the site. Joined today by Dylan Sanders and Sonny Ship, our leading recruiting guy or recruiting man. Sonny, what's going on, man? Haven't had you on in a little bit. What's going on?
Yeah, man, the season's finally here, and it's good to get on. And busy weekend ahead. Busy weekend ahead. It definitely got off to a good start there on Thursday. LSU landing that big commitment from Zalance Heard.
Yep, absolutely. We'll touch on that a little bit to start and just kind of a little outline for you guys. We're going to hit on some LSU FSU final thoughts. We're going to drop our predictions for the game and then we'll get out of here. But just before we get started, just remember to hit that like button on the YouTube videos. Follow us, wherever you get your podcast info from and wherever you're listening from. So any kind of contributions you guys can give us in that regard is always appreciated. So kind of with that, Sonny, you kind of hit on it a little bit there, but obviously LSU lands the big 4 or 5 star tackle out of Neville, Zalance Heard. Just I guess talk a little bit about how LSU really fared throughout his recruitment and just what this kind of means for their class.
Yeah, second edge protector in a row in the second straight class from out of Neville. Of course, Will Campbell slated to start at left tackle on Saturday, and then Heard coming in probably more of a right tackle type if you're putting him in the I guess in the best spot on the offensive line. But he's athletic, a really heavy and strong defensive background for playing so much a defensive line, and so he's really kind of still kind of raw as far as playing the offensive line goes, but. He's got the athleticism. He's got the feet. He's a mauler when he gets his hands on you, and has the measurables. Legit 6'5", 6'5 and a half, over 300 pounds, but it's a lean 300 pounds. It's not a he's not carrying a lot of bad weight. Of course, coming in with Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly's going to try to get him down a little bit to fit that that more of that lean athletic offensive type offensive tackle type that he has and that he's, I guess, kind of bringing in on the roster. But just a big pickup. Third offensive lineman joining Tyree Adams and joining Paul Mabinga out of Georgia. You still got DJ Chester out there. Wouldn't discount Purdue commit Ethan Fields out of Dutchtown. So you still got some offensive linemen out there on the board. But when you look inside the state of Louisiana, and when you circle guys that, okay, this Brian Kelly and this staff really need to go out and they need to get these two guys, Tyree Adams and Heard, were at the top of the list.
Absolutely. I mean, I just come back to just how really interesting this story is. I mean, you could be talking about in 2 years having an all Neville tackle as your bookends, with Campbell and with Heard there. I think that's just a really exciting kind of storyline for the future. And, I kind of go back a little bit to what Coach Kelly even told us on Thursday that he likes to, essentially, kind of break the offensive lineman down so we could build them back up physically. He likes the more athletic offensive lineman. He likes guys being a little bit underweight, so he knows, how to build up that athleticism with those guys. And I think that certainly fits kind of what Hurd's going to be able to do. Dylan, just I guess quick thoughts on Heard. Anything that you got in terms of just what you think LSU's getting here?
Yeah, I just think that it points again. This is another step where people were freaking out about being able to recruit Louisiana. This is another one of those top guys, another one of those must-haves for the future of your class, and they were able to get in there and lock them down. So it's just another encouraging look to the future for LSU's recruiting.
Absolutely, I agree. I think we'll probably just cap it off right there with that talk. I know everybody wants to get into some LSU FSU talk here. Dylan and I are going to be on site in the Superdome on Sunday night, so we'll have all the coverage for you guys that you could possibly want. We'll be there from very early start, I would imagine, probably when the doors open around 4 or 3, whenever that happens. But kickoff is at 6:30 against the Seminoles. Dylan and I have kind of hopped on earlier this week and kind of given you our early impressions, but kind of as the week's gone on, we've, really learned a little bit more about what LSU is going to want to do in terms of just rotations and who could be in and who could be out, that kind of deal. Just a few quick hitters that I thought, we could run through. We could start with the quarterbacks here. team knows who the quarterback is. Apparently, the team found out on Monday, and Coach Kelly made a little joke with us yesterday that they've done a good job of keeping it from us. So no social media posts on that, but certainly getting down to Jaden Daniels and Garrett Nussmeier here. Just who I guess I'll just ask plainly, who do you guys think it's going to be? I mean, we can start with you, Sonny.
I mean, I still think it's going to be Jaden Daniels, and I think the telling stat and the key stat as to or a big reason why is one key stat, and that's 29-0. 29 starts for Jaden Daniels, 0 for Garrett Nussmeier.
Yep.
And so I think when you look at a situation like this coming into the first game, you're in your own backyard, but you're not in your home venue. So you still have some distractions that could come up with, quote unquote, being on the road, even though it's a neutral site game. So I think when you lump all of that in, I just think that Jaden Daniels gives them maybe a little bit more comfort level to start the game. But something that I truly believe in is that if Garrett Nussmeier gets a chance, and now it could be against Florida State, it could not be against Florida State, but when Garrett Nussmeier gets a chance and he gets a chance to get out there and show what he can do, I think people are going to quickly realize why the quarterback battle was a lot closer than it may have appeared to be when you look at the experience versus Jaden Daniels' experience, the stats he's put up compared to Garrett Nussmeier, the 4 games he played in last year, is the livelier arm that Nussmeier has. They both give you something with their feet. Daniels has the edge, of course, with his feet. Nussmeier has the edge with his arm. And so, I think ultimately the guy that lasts and that leads this team for the duration, for the majority of 2022, is going to be the guy that makes the least amount of mistakes, the guy that gets them in the best situations, the one that doesn't turn the ball over, doesn't put the defense in bad situations, because I think the skill sets from each of them are pretty much tit for tat.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, just Dylan, what are your thoughts on this quarterback battle? I know we talked about it some earlier this week, and you're just ready for it to be over. But just final thoughts, I guess, on who you think is going to get that starting nod on Sunday.
See, the longer it goes, I'm talking myself into thinking that it's going to be Nussmeier, but I feel like it has to be Jaden.
Yeah.
Just pretty much for every reason Sonny mentioned. I think that the skill level from what we've seen in camp has been negligible to me. Like they're pretty much almost even in terms of like total skill talent. So I think to me it just comes to who we've seen run the offense more and more smoothly, and that's just been Jaden, in my opinion. I feel like he has looked more comfortable, and although they both in the past have had mistakes of turning the ball over, I think that Jaden probably gives you the better chance of more mature decision making come game day.
I agree. I do think it ultimately ends up being Daniels. I think we're all in kind of coordination there. I've been really impressed with the improvement in accuracy that Jaden's made this fall. I think his short and intermediate accuracy has really improved. I think he was definitely hesitant, as you could see in the spring, of just really throwing the ball. I mean, we didn't see him throw the ball much at all in the spring, and he came back a much more confident quarterback. And I think that has a lot to do with the offseason work he had back in California with his quarterbacks coach, and then obviously coordinating with Joe Sloan and the LSU crew here as well. So, yeah, I think we all are in agreement there. I think Jaden Daniels gives you kind of that experience, that value, that mobility that you really want for this opening week. But I think there's some really interesting headlines, I think, heading into this one as well. It sounds like Malik Neighbors is going to play. Touching on the cornerback rotation a little bit, Coach Kelly talked with us yesterday. It sounds like Jared Bernard Converse is going to handle the field side, to the field side, and then you're going to have Seven Banks and Mekhi Gardner and Colby Richardson kind of rotating on the other boundary corner spot. So, just a couple of highlights there. He also talked about the tight ends and the importance of the tight ends on Thursday, and how they've been really, really impressed with Mason Taylor. He's been kind of the breakout freshman of all camp, and I think LSU feels really good about throwing him out there for a significant amount of snaps. So don't be surprised if you see a lot of 86 on Sunday and kind of getting some short volume throws to him. Maybe we can touch on a couple of things here, but just to start off with, what are a couple things you guys are really going to be looking for? We mentioned a couple of them in our 5 things piece on Wednesday, but just, I guess, Sonny and Dylan, what are a couple of things that you guys are really going to be keying in on and what you want to see out of this group on Sunday? We can start with
Yeah.
Sonny, I guess.
Yeah, I think it starts with, I think it starts with you want to see a clean game. You don't want to see a ton of mistakes. You don't want to see, you don't want to see guys jumping off sides, hitting guys out of bounds, that sort of thing. And you hope to see, you hope to see the byproduct of what Brian Kelly has implemented since he came in, which is putting his system in place of checks and balances, keeping up with what everyone does. He felt that would allow that would help, and that would allow them to play more clean games, to play cleaner games, to make fewer mistakes. So you really want to kind of see that out of the gate, because you don't want to see the stupid penalties, you don't want to see the turnovers, the the drive killing penalties, things like that keep a game closer maybe than it should be. This is LSU. I don't care how many people Florida State's going to bring into the Superdome. This is basically going to be a home crowd for LSU. So they're going to have all of that. They're going to have all of that on its side. So if it can go out, if it cannot make those mistakes, get some drives going, get some points going early, get the crowd into it, get the players excited, then I think it can start to you can see the game kind of start to shift the way it needs to start to shift, to where, once you start hitting that third quarter coming out of halftime, you kind of start to see a little bit of separation. And, in order to do that, you're going to have to capitalize on opportunities that you have, or, during that first half.
Yeah, absolutely. Dylan, we talked about it a little bit earlier this week, but just what are a couple things I think you really want to kind of notice and kind of really recognize about this team this Sunday?
Well, I know the past 2 seasons that LSU's come out of the gate looking sloppy, not ready, and this is a game where you're going to really have to buck that curve because of how they run their offense. It's going to keep the defenders on their edge. They're going to have to play a smart game with how many bluffs they use. They have a bunch of unique formations, and they use their offensive linemen in different ways than you'd expect. So it's just everyone's gonna have to be on the top of their game. They're gonna have to be ready, prepared, and smart. So I just want to see how this coaching staff prepares for the attack of Florida State, and see if the coaching really is different this year, because it's been sold as a revelation. It's completely different. They're so much better than they were like at the start of last year, the last couple of years. But I want to see that in action. I do think we see Mason Taylor early and often. If I had to guess on what the first play would be, it would probably be, I think, a pass to Mason Taylor, like right out the gate. That's just how they seem to like. Mike Denbrock likes to start games passing the tight ends. Both Mike Denbrock and Brian Kelly, like that. We're gonna see. I don't know. I'm ready to just find out what this team is gonna look like, because we haven't seen much. We don't know what they're outside of any like base formations. We really don't know what to expect. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they use the talent that LSU has, because this is by far, I don't even think it's hard to say, by far the most talented roster that any of these coaches have worked with to this point. So it's going to be interesting to see how they use that talent.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be interesting. I think I don't see them opening up the entire playbook in terms of offense and defense. I think you still kind of go into week 1 with maybe a little bit guarded, but you obviously still have to put your work in and run what you think is going to work. But I'm going to be looking for a couple different things. I think probably number 1 for me is just whoever does get that starting job, just to play loose, at quarterback. I mean, this thing has been so tight all off season, and really anything that Kelly and these coaches and these players have said leads you to believe that it's going to be tight, throughout the entire season. And I think the fact that they are keeping the option open of playing both of these guys throughout the entire season, it's something that Kelly is very familiar with doing at his time at Notre Dame, working with a couple quarterbacks throughout a season. I want to you want to make sure that the guy who does get the nod isn't looking over his shoulder, for the entire game if he misses a pass or if there's a turnover or if there's a couple of mistakes here and there. You want to make sure that that guy still has your confidence, and so. I think that's going to be one big thing I'm going to be looking for is just whether it's Daniels or if it's Nussmeier, just for them to play loose, to really just operate the offense like they've been operating all fall, because I don't feel like there's really a wrong way that LSU could go in terms of the starter on Sunday at quarterback. I think they've both been that impressive. So just kind of stick to what you've been doing really the whole time, and that'll be something that I'll be looking out for. I do think this is going to be a game that's going to be fought in the trenches. I think the strength for Florida State's defense is their defensive line. And the strength of Florida State's offense has been their running game and their offensive line kind of opening some holes with those three running backs that they like to use. They like to use a lot of multi-running back sets. It's going to be really important, I think, for LSU's front seven on defense to be communicating. That was something we talked with BJ Ojulari, with Mike Jones about. I think it's going to be really important also for LSU to establish its own run game. I mean, last year we saw at times LSU's offense became extremely one-dimensional when they didn't get the run game going. And it's going to be really important for Noah Cain and Armani Goodwin and Josh Williams, with Emory potentially not playing in this game, for those guys to really kind of establish themselves early. And I think it's going to be a big opportunity for those guys. But just kind of where do you guys, I guess we can start with Sonny here, but just where do you see the matchups in terms of LSU and in terms of their favor? Do you think it's going to be really across the board that LSU has favorable matchups? Is there one particular position group you think LSU is going to have an advantage at? Just what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the position groups that matter the most are the ones that you got to win, and that's in the trenches.
Yep.
Whichever team's defensive line takes the other offensive line to the woodshed, and I think that one of them is going to come out on top, because I think that's where it is. I think the LSU defensive line against the Florida State offensive line is a nice mismatch that really favors LSU. And the Florida State defensive line against LSU's offensive line, I'm anxious to see how LSU's offensive line answers the bell, because you got so many new pieces in there. You have so many new faces. Of course, they're not going to gel. They're not going to be playing with chemistry right now. So really, with it being so new and so fresh across the front, you really just want to, if you leave this game saying, okay, you know what, they held their own, then I think LSU will be in a good spot. You just want to hold your own against a defensive line that is good like Florida State. And so to me, those are two key areas that's going to determine the outcome. And of course, whichever quarterback makes the least amount of mistakes, you can toss that in there too. But for me, it starts in the trenches and it ends in the trenches. Whichever one controls that is going to come out on top.
Dylan, how about you? We've talked a lot about the receivers, a lot about the secondary this offseason. Is there any other matchups that you're going to be really looking at in terms of LSU and being polished and looking like like they have really all fall? Any position that stands out?
Yeah, well, just to bounce off of what Sonny was saying, Will Campbell does not draw a great matchup. Well, draws a tough matchup for his first collegiate game. Jared Verse is a name you're going to hear a lot on Sunday night. He is a transfer from Albany, so he's never really played like the elite talent or like SEC talent, but he is very, very talented, very athletic, very fast. It's going to be an interesting matchup. I think he is a little bit different than any edge defender LSU has on this roster, just in terms of how he goes about things. So Will Campbell's going to have to bring his A game from the start. So that's one I'm going to be watching that very, very closely. But outside of that, LSU really does have a huge advantage from wide receiver to cornerback. And I do want to say Jamie Robinson, out of Florida State, is likely to be the best player in the secondary on the field at all that night for both teams. They probably have the best secondary player, but that is just one safety. Outside of him, I think LSU has an advantage that they have to take care of. Like you want to see them like set the run game up, but with Keishon Boutte, with Malik Neighbors, with Jack Besh, with Dre Jenkins, even like you want to use that to the best that you can. And you're going to need the wide receivers to step up because Florida State's going to be really aggressive on the defensive line, and obviously the offensive line has to stand up. But the other position group I'm watching is how LSU's running backs fare against the Florida State D-line. The Florida State D-line, I think, is where the game could be won and lost because they have a huge opportunity to get to LSU's quarterback, whoever it may be, and to shut down the run game with their linebackers. Really, the front seven is where this game is won and lost, but LSU has to take advantage of the mismatch between the wide receivers and their cornerbacks.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree probably with all that stuff. I think we should probably also touch maybe just on Jordan Travis a little bit, the FSU quarterback. Coach Kelly has mentioned him a number of times throughout his interview sessions this week. He's been very impressed with how Travis has been a little bit more, I guess, improved as a passer. And obviously he's somebody that you have to really key in on with his mobility as well. He's very much in that kind of Jaden Daniels mold, maybe not quite the athlete that Jaden is, but he's pretty close, and he can really scramble and really create some opportunities downfield with his legs. So LSU is going to have to communicate in that front seven. They're going to have to make sure that they're getting a nice balance of pressure and some really solid coverage from their secondary to really keep this FSU offense off its kilter. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they stop the run game. That was something that LSU did very well last year, and they pretty much returned their entire front four there in terms of stopping the run. So, I think, and we've heard a lot also about the improvements that Mekhi Wingo has made in that department and as a potential run stuffer in the middle of that D line. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this LSU defense holds up against FSU's offense. I think there are some advantages up front for LSU on the defensive line, but I think we're going to. At the end of the day, I think we're all just ready to get to game day. I think we've been talking about these now for several weeks. We've been talking about these position battles, and now you just really want to see kind of what this team looks like. And I think we're all really excited to see that on Sunday. But I guess we'll just close it off with our predictions here. I guess I can start it off and then hand it off to Sonny and Dylan. But I kind of have this as an LSU 4-point game. I think LSU gets out of there with a 31-27 win. That's kind of my early thoughts on what I think the game kind of comes down to. I think, offensively, LSU just has so much talent with their skills position players and the way that Jaden Daniels and Garrett Nussmeier have both looked. I think the LSU offense is going to – it would be surprising to me if LSU's offense doesn't have some consistency in pushing the ball down the field and getting into the end zone. I think we've seen a lot of improvements throughout the offseason and throughout fall in that respect. I think, defensively, when you have such a brand new secondary, when you have so many new faces out there that are going to be starting in the back half, I think that could lead to a couple of, mistakes here and there, and that could lead to some big plays for Florida State throughout the game, setting them up into some advantageous positions. So I do think the defense could be a kind of a work in progress, which is something you would probably expect with so many new players coming in and just getting that communication down. I think one of the things that we kind of noticed throughout the fall was just how great camps that Noah Cain and Armani Goodwin had as running backs, and I think a lot of that had to do with some of the the holes that opened up in the middle of the defense. And so that's going to be something that LSU's front seven is really going to have to key in on with Florida State. And I do think LSU, though, ultimately gets this thing done and gets out of there, gets out of the Superdome with the home win. Sonny, what are your thoughts on the prediction? What do you think happens?
Well, you touched on Jordan Travis, and LSU can't let him beat them with his legs. He's got, roughly over 1,400 yards rushing throughout his career, a little bit over 2,800 passing. think his touchdowns are 22 passing, 18 rushing. So, if he's not running the football, if he's not having success running the football, I don't think he beats you with just his arm. Not in this game right here. And so containing him is going to be key. A lot of that's going to fall on the, one is whoever the spy is, but also LSU's linebackers are going to have to keep containment and have to not leave big alleys and big lanes open in the middle of the field. But ultimately, I think it comes down to, the trench play, like I said before. And I think that this offense that LSU has, yes, you want to get the ball to the playmakers, to the receivers, but I think in order to do that, you got to establish the run, and you have to use that physical offensive line, that one that wants to play with a nasty disposition. You want to come out, you want to flex those muscles early, you want to punch them in the mouth. And if LSU can do that, then I think this could be a game that is similar to that one in 2018 with Miami that ended 33-17. I have a little bit of a hesitation in the offense scoring that much, simply because I think it's going to take a little bit of time for that offensive line and for everybody to kind of get on the same page. I'm looking at this. Initially, I'd had this looking, like I said, like that 2018 game. After watching FSU and Duquesne, I kind of changed that a little bit. In my prediction with Knowles 247, I put 24-16. So I guess I'll stick with that. But I feel more comfortable about 27-20.
All right, Dylan.
So take the points. The points. Do what I'm going to do. Take those 8 free bets with DraftKings and put them all on LSU to cover.
I think LSU's -3 right now, so I think Sonny and I both have them to cover that. So yeah, -3. Dylan, what's your thoughts?
So I've gone back and forth. I think this is going to be a very close game. I'm still taking LSU with the points. I don't know. I feel like this game could be a game where you watch all night and it's close and there's not a lot happening, but then you look in the final scores like, oh, well, this is higher than I thought it was. Maybe like just broken plays at certain points. I feel like is an inevitability on both sides. Some big plays. We're going to need to see more chunk plays than we've seen in practice. But I think when it all comes down to it, I think I'm going to go 28-24 LSU.
All right.
I don't think that we're going to get an LSU made field goal. I think that we might see a time where LSU misses. I think LSU missed field goal coming. That's my thing. I feel like that's where I've been trying to.
So they get out there and they attempt it, but it doesn't go through the uprights. Okay.
I think so.
All right. Well, I think that's pretty much it for us today. I think, folks, we're about 48 hours from kickoff here. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll certainly have you covered throughout the day on Sunday and into the weekend as well. We'll have a bunch of stuff getting you guys ready for the preview and this kickoff at 6:30 on Sunday from the Superdome. With that, I'm Glen West here with Sonny and Dylan. We'll see you guys next time. I